In this short video, we are going to review how to factor by grouping, how to factor a quadratic trinomial where a is not equal to 1 using the Kung Fu method, and we're going to talk about how to factor a quadratic trinomial where a is not equal to 1 using a different method called split the middle. You may prefer this to the Kung Fu method. Alright, so let's jump in and get started. I'm going to change my pen color though. Let's mix it up. Let's go some deep purple. When we factor by grouping, remember we are going to group the first two terms and the second two terms and then factor out the GCF. Factoring the GCF for the first two terms, I'm going to divide out a 3x squared. When I do that, I'm going to be left with x plus 2. Alright, if I look across my next two terms, it looks like they both have a negative there. So I can factor out a negative 1. And then I'm going to be left with x plus 2. So this is factoring by grouping, and what we've created are these two terms, 3x squared times x plus 2, and then a negative 1, x plus 2. And inside the parentheses, x plus 2 is one of our factors. So x plus 2 is one of them. Then the remaining terms that I have left, the 3x squared and the minus 1, are my other factors. So 3x squared minus 1. So when I multiply together 3x squared minus 1 and x plus 2, I will get back my original polynomial that I started with. Now you should always take a look at these two factors and determine if you can factor them further. However, we can't, so we say that these are fully factored. So the two factors are 3x squared minus 1 and x plus 2. Okay, let's take a look at our next example. Here's where we have a quadratic trinomial. So notice that it's only 3 terms instead of 4 like we had up in the grouping. And we're going to review our Kung Fu method. So the Kung Fu method starts by kicking the 3 to the 10 and rewriting it as x squared plus 17x plus 30. That's what we get when we take 3 times the 10. All right, now we're going to factor this. So looking for factors of 30 that add to be 17, that's 2 and 5. So that gives me x plus 2 and x plus 15. All right, the last step we needed to do was chop. And we're going to take that original a value of 3 and we're going to chop our factors. So when we chop them, we now need to simplify. I cannot simplify 2/3, so that 3 swings up in the front, and I'm left with the factor 3x plus 2. And the last one, 15 divided by 3, can be simplified, and so the other factor there is x plus 5. And we got that by taking 15 divided by 3. So again, you should always check and see if you can factor any further, and since these are degree 1 polynomials or linear factors, we can't factor them any further, and so we're done. All right, so we are going to factor that same quadratic trinomial, 3x squared plus 17x plus 10, but we're going to use a different method this time. This method is known as split the middle. And once you've learned how to factor by grouping, split the middle might make a little bit more sense to you, and you might prefer it over Kung Fu. So here's how it goes. We do start by taking a and multiplying it to c. So 3 times 10 is 30. Now what we do with that 30 is we are looking for factors of 30 that combine to give me 17. Well, notice from above we said that that's 2 and 15. So that 2 and the 15 are used to split that middle term and write this as now a 4-term polynomial. So watch how this goes. My first term stays the same, 3x squared, but I'm going to rewrite 17x as 2x plus 15x. So plus 2x plus 15x plus 10. So notice my first term, my last term stay the same, and what I did with that middle term is I split it up into the two factors that when multiplied together would give me a times c. Now I have 4-term polynomial, and I'm going to factor by grouping. You know how to factor by grouping. We're going to pair the first two terms together, factor out the GCF. This gives me x, 3x plus 2. And then take the next two terms, factor out the GCF, plus 5. And I'm left with 3x plus 2. All right, Now I'm going to take a look at the polynomial that's inside my parentheses there. That's 3x plus 2. That's one of my factors, 3x plus 2. And the other one is what I have remaining, and that's x plus 5. And there you have it. You've arrived at the same factors using this technique of split the middle that you would have gotten if you kung fu'd it. So feel free to use this split the middle technique. You will take that middle term and split it up into its two factors that give us the product of A times C, and then factor by grouping.